This time it's the turn of RBAC, whether you call it role-based access control or role-based admin control. We're going to take a look at exactly what it is, but more importantly, what it can do for you. Hi there everyone, Andy Malone, Microsoft MVP and Microsoft Certified Trainer. Administration is a very important part of Microsoft 365 and also Azure Active Directory, but it's also quite complex. So this is where RBAC, or role-based access control or role-based admin control, depending on how you call it, comes into play. It's all about how you can delegate administrative tasks to other users who have those specific job roles. So for example, you might have an Exchange administrator, a Teams admin, a SharePoint admin. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I thought in this session we would have a nice deep dive into the topic, exactly how it works and what it does. So if you're interested, stick around as always. If you like what you see, go ahead, click on that subscribe button, ring that bell so that you don't miss a thing. So, are you ready to learn? Let's take a look. Okay, so in this session, I'm going to show you role-based administration control in Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure. First up, you can see here, it's talking about the number of roles that I currently have in my organization. And you can see that the main role that most administrators feel that they need to go for is this global admin. The rule of thumb, by the way, is that you shouldn't have more than 5, but no less than 2. So what you can do, there's a number of different ways to assign roles. So when you're creating a user account, so if I create my user account here, if I go into Albert's account, I can, in the properties of Albert's account, I can assign a role. And essentially what role-based administration control does is it basically gives the user access to a specific admin center. Now, again, global administrators are God in an organization, so you should kind of avoid those. But if it's a job-based role, so for example, maybe somebody is a Teams administrator or a SharePoint or an Exchange admin, if you do need to create a role for a user to manage other users and groups, then consider using the user admin role. I think this is probably the second most powerful role. So you can see, you can view the various roles by category and so on here. So that's the first place that you can assign a role to a user. To actually view the various roles, we can simply go into the portal here. If you click onto roles, you can see that you get a nice detailed list of all the different roles. Now, again, for somebody who's looking at this for the first time, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed. You might say, oh my goodness, there's so many different roles here. Don't worry too much about that. So there are really important roles that you do need to think about. So as I've said, the user administrator, each of the products also has their own administration. So SharePoint, Teams, and so on. Teams is a little bit different. In fact, there are 5 different roles that you can have in Teams. So whereas the Teams admin might be a more senior role, things like a support specialist might be more of a junior type role. All right. Now, again, you can go in here and you can, for example, I can click in here and I can assign an administrator in here. But the only problem with this particular portal is it assumes that the person I assign, they're going to have permanent access to this role. You might not want that. You might only want to give them, let's say, temporary access while somebody else is on holiday. So as an alternative to that, may I suggest that you go into the Azure Active Directory Admin Center. if you come into the Admin Center, you can go into Roles and Administrators, and in here you can see that you get that exact same list of roles here. With the exception of a few additional Azure Active Directory roles. Again, Azure, of course, has a number of different services. Now, if I scroll down, you'll notice that some of these roles have a little green banner at the side of them. This means that they're new roles. So, for example, we've just added the new printer technician role, which is quite nice, and also a printer administrator to manage all these internet-based printers that are out there now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my user admin role, and I click into the role, and at the moment you can see that I've not assigned anybody access to this particular role. So unlike the 365 portal, I'm going to go in and add an assignment. And when I come in here, it says, okay, the scope. Now, by default, it says, do you want them to have access to the entire directory? Now, we have a new feature in 365 Admin Center, and it's called administrative units, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. So administrative units, and I'll come back and I'll give you a little demo of that in a moment. But here what we've got, you can see that it says active assignments and also eligible assignments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a user here, and by default I'm just going to choose the directory. And what the directory means that you have the right to manage all users, all groups within the entire directory. But I'll show you how you can scope that in a minute. So who are you going to assign as an administrator? Well, I've got Albert here. He's pretty knowledgeable, so I'm going to add him to that particular role. And I'm going to click next. Now, by default, it says, okay, do you want Albert to be active right now? So if you click active, he's got the permission to use this tool right away, and he can be a user admin right now. However, you might not want that to be the case. This is sometimes referred to as PIM, privileged identity management, I should say. And what this does is it basically says, okay, do you want this user to be eligible to use the role? So maybe you're on vacation and Albert is going to be taking over your job for a couple of weeks. Now, he can either be permanently eligible, which means that he's not using that role right now, but he can step in if needed. All right. The alternative is he can be temporarily eligible for the role, and you can put an assignment. So typically it goes in by default at 3 months, a couple of months even. You can see there's an example here. So you can set that, when the assignment starts, and in this case it's a few months. Now, for the purpose of this, I'm going to say, yeah, okay, I'm just going to accept that. Because you're going on vacation, he's pretty knowledgeable, he's going to take over for me. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign that now. Now at the moment you can see that in active assignments Albert's not there because he hasn't gone into the portal yet, he hasn't used it yet. Now Andy, can I control exactly what he's got access to and how long he's got access to that for? Of course you can. So if I go into the eligible assignments, you'll see that Albert's now listed. That's his username, and he's got access to the entire directory here. So what I can do is you can either click on settings here, or you can go to the role settings. It doesn't really matter. What can the role do? If you click onto the description, you get a really detailed description of all the attributes that Albert can manage, or this particular role can manage. So if I go into the role settings here, and if I click onto edit, you can now see it says, okay, upon activation, how many hours do I want to give Albert or let any user with this role have access? So you can see you can increase that, you can decrease it, whatever suits you. On activation, does the user require multi-factor authentication? Absolutely. That's always good security. Is Albert going to require justification for activating it? So when Albert goes into the admin portal, he'll be asked to put in a reason why he's gaining access. Okay, and this is useful for auditing and compliance purposes. Do you require to generate a ticket on activation? So again, if you're using a support tool. Does he require pre-approval? So again, I can say, okay, is there a particular group or a particular user here? So for example, I could say, when Albert goes in, the request comes to Megan, and Megan has to approve his request. All right, so this is called an approver. So this can be a group of users, or it can be individual users. So the require on approval to activate is quite useful. All right, so now we go to assignment, and you can see allow permanent eligible assignment. So these are the kind of the template, the default settings. So if you say, no, I don't want it, so you can change it from a month to a year to 6 months. So if you've got contractors coming in, when this role is activated, he'll have 3 months. He'll have 1 year and so on. All right. So I'm going to say, 3 months sounds pretty good. Are you going to allow permanent active assignment? So this is the eligible assignment or active assignment. So again, you can choose that as well. Okay, so eligible would then kick into the amount of hours. So if I said he can only use 10.5 hours within 3 months, it wouldn't let him go any further. Whereas permanent eligible assignment, he could use it as often as he wants within that time period. Okay. Require multi-factor authentication. Again, this is just the default setting, and again, justification. So again, I'm happy with that, and I will then say, okay, next, notification. So do I want to let Albert know, or any of the users know, that he's basically activated the role? So I can put email IDs here, group IDs. Maybe it's a support Teams group that you're using in Microsoft Teams. Again, you might want to send notifications that that role has been activated. So I'm just going to update these settings, and I've now updated those settings for that particular role. So now when I go into the user admin role, you can see that Albert is listed here. And again, I can easily remove that role, and I can also update it if I want to make any changes. Now, because Albert is a temporary, he's only got temporary access, what happens is as soon as he goes in, activates that role, it will then move to assigned or to active assignment. Now, once that clock is finished and he's done his number of hours, or he's been in there for a number of days, it then disconnects and he goes into expired assignments. Now, if you need to go back in, you can select Albert and you can reset that, of course. All right. So the 3 settings here: eligible, active, and expired assignments. Now, finally, the last thing that I want to mention is we have a little problem here because Albert has access to the entire directory. So this takes me to a feature in 365 called, in fact, in Azure Active Directory, it's called administrative units. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add, and I'm going to add the name of my admin unit. I'm just going to call this my London HQ. Okay. You can put in a little description there. And again, I'm going to assign a role. Now, what this does is it gives you a subset of a number of roles that you can deploy locally. So, for example, password admin, license, help desk, and so on. You don't really get product roles because product roles tend to scope to all users. So, for example, Exchange admin, SharePoint, it tends to be the entire organization. Whereas some of these roles, these are quite useful locally. So, for example, I'm going to say, yeah, okay, I want to go into here. Now, I want Alex to actually, Alex is based in London, so I want Alex to actually be the administrator of the user accounts here. All right. So, again, I'm going to say, yeah, that's fine. Let's review it and let's create it. All right. So now I'm going to go into my London HQ admin unit, and now I can start adding in some users. So I'm going to add in Alex, I'll add in Alan, we'll go for Beverly, I'm a Trekkie, I'll go for Brian, Cameron, who else have we got? We've got Diego, I think I've got Jean-Luc, of course, and of course we've got Captain Kirk somewhere in there as well. We'll put, there we go, Captain Kirk. Yes. Okay, so these are all my users who are based in the London office. Do we have any groups in there? Of course we do. So you can also add some groups in here. So if I just scroll down, and if I say, what have we got here? I'll say the, what have we got? Let's see who we can put in here. Let's say, for example, the HR team is a Microsoft team, but it's also an Office 365 group as well. So I'm going to add that group in here as well. And you could now, initially when you add in groups here, it looks like it's not gone in, by the way. It does. It's just that it's playing a little bit of catch up. So you just need to refresh a couple of minutes and those resources will appear. So there we go. I have now added that group. So if I go back into my London HQ, and in the London HQ, you can see that I've got my users in here. And do I have my, yes, I've now got my group as well. But more importantly, I've assigned an administrator who is going to look after all the resources in London. And that is the key point here, right? So if I now go back into Azure AD, and if I go into roles and admin, scroll right down and go into user admin, now you'll see that Alex, he's been active assignment, user, but look, the scope is just the London HQ. It's not the entire directory. Andy, can I make you do all the temporary stuff with Alan? Absolutely you can. So you can go into this particular user account. I can update this settings and I can say, hey, you know, is he going to be eligible? Is he permanently? You can change the dates and so on. So incredibly granular the things that you can do with this role-based admin. Now, of course, if I'm a security admin or a compliance admin or an exchange admin, when I come into the admin center, I would only see the menu options which relate to me. So, for example, if I'm a Microsoft Exchange admin, I would only have access to the Exchange management portal here that you can see. All right, so there we have it, a little bit of information about roles. So there you have it, RBAC, role-based access control, absolutely awesome. And now you know what all those different administrator roles do. If you've enjoyed this session, go ahead, click on that subscribe button, ring that bell, and you won't miss a thing. And as always, I really welcome your feedback and your comments down below. So until next time, you stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much for dropping by. Remember, you can visit me at andymalone.org and go ahead and click on that subscribe button so that you don't miss a thing. I'll see you next time.